This is the story of a man named Stanley. How can I get him to see what I see? How can I make him look at himself? You could have gone through the door on the right. You could have done whatever the hell you wanted over there. Why did you come this way? What, did you think that would be funny? You just had to see? Didn't I impress upon you how important it was to be like Stanley? That thought hadn't even occurred to you, had it? That there's a world outside of you? You're a child. He'll understand soon what I was trying to tell him. He needs me. Someone who will wrap everything up at the end to make sense out of the chaos and the fear and the confusion. Oh, yes, I'll be back. There's no other way. Once this ends, after it all comes to a close, then I'll be back. Stanley came to a set of 2 open doors. He entered the door on his left.
The original Stanley Parable is great. It's focused on telling a well-written, funny story, and it's a story about the choices we make in life. It's a story asking if those choices have any meaning in the end, and most importantly, it's a story about Stanley. Or rather, it's a story about you, the player. The first game's focus was on telling this interesting and funny story. It deconstructed the fundamental ideas of telling a story in a video game, and then reconstructed those ideas inside out. I know I'm praising this as some kind of avant-garde niche art piece, but it genuinely can't be described any other way to me. If you somehow haven't played the original game before watching this video, then 1, shame on you for ignoring me in the intro, and 2, go. Do it now. Stop the video and come back after you've gone and played through all of the endings that has to offer, because if you don't, I will find you, and I will. The game is constantly topping itself in every aspect, from the writing of the jokes to the endings themselves. I know some people have complained that the game is, and let me see if I got this right, boring, but that's the point. It's supposed to seem boring and simple on the surface, but actually playing the game is like an office life fever dream, and it's a fever dream that can only exist in the realm of video games. For the longest time, I wasn't sure how to describe this game without even ruining a little bit of the magic. Best I've been able to come up with is this. It's the best story I've ever experienced, and one that can only work in a video game, which I honestly believe is true. Mostly that second part about working in a video game. I mean, think about it. A lot of video game stories, with small changes, could easily be refitted into books, TV shows, or movies. Fallout New Vegas, one of the best video games of all time, is about a man with amnesia trying to piece together why he was hunted down, all while getting entangled in an upcoming war. That could work in pretty much any medium, it doesn't have to be video games. But Stanley Parable is different. On a fundamental level, it cannot exist outside of the video game medium. It toys with the ideas and rules of traditional video games and their storytelling. There's a story, but it always winds up back at the beginning. There are multiple endings, but you can't truly beat the game. And all the while you're playing with it, it's playing with you. Point is, it is one of the best games I've ever played, and I didn't think anything would ever come close to that. Until they announced Ultra Deluxe. And that game blows everything the original did out of the water.
What is comedic timing? What is comedic timing?
Let's get this out of the way right now. Yes, humor is subjective. What I find funny might be different to what you might find funny. I mean, for fuck's sake, I still laugh at shit like this.
Well, when life gives you lemons.
But Ultra Deluxe is objectively hilarious, and I will not hear any opinions otherwise. The original game had a bit of a reputation with its screwball humor, and who can blame it, it's hilarious. You could watch an instructional film on how to make choices in life, which birthed the greatest sentence said in any video game ever.
Turn to a partner and practice saying, "My goodness, is it 4:30? I'm supposed to be having a back sack and crack."
You could sit in a broom closet for no reason until the narrator is done with you.
Stanley was fat and ugly and really, really stupid. He probably only got the job because of a family connection. That's how stupid he is. That or with drug money. Also, Stanley is addicted to drugs and hookers.
You could be forced to play a game for 4 hours until the narrator has an epiphany on what art truly is.
You heartless bastard.
These examples are all weird, but hey, that's the point. They're funny because they're weird. So how could Ultra Deluxe top this? The bucket. When they first announced Ultra Deluxe would have more endings than the first, I was curious on how they'd pull it off without bloating the map or something. It was tricky to already memorize the layout of the original game, so how could you solve the problem of adding more endings without over-bloating the map? Give the player an item that not only is a joke in of itself, but while holding this item, it changes several outcomes of the story. Do you want an ending where you and the bucket fall off a ledge and live out the rest of your lives in a big dark hole? Do you want an ending where you have to play a game with the narrator about what is or isn't a bucket?
Item 1. Is this a bucket? Correct.
Do you want an ending where the bucket seduces you in your own home? One where you kill the bucket? One where you learn what real comedy is? One where you look at silly bird videos? I genuinely can't praise the comedy more, and it's somehow better than the original game, which was already funny. And both of these games' comedy can be absolutely attributed to Kevan Brighting's great performance as the narrator. He completely elevates even the smallest of jokes.
There was so much it could have done, perhaps, the bucket wondered to itself. Perhaps if it had seen its own darkness with a clearer perception. This was way too much for Stanley.
What are you talking about?
He screamed.
You're a bucket!
Well, we're on the topic of the narrator. The narrator is an interesting character. In the first game, depending on the ending, he'd either be the storyteller, the main antagonist, or just along for the ride with Stanley and the player. In the end, all he really wants to do is tell his story.
Oh, my story. If you'd just gone through the door on the left, you would have seen it. There was a whole underground facility. You would have destroyed it and been victorious. It would have been so perfect. I worked so hard on it.
Kevan Brighting's voice perfectly works for the comedy bits, as I already said, but he can also very effortlessly switch his voice to serious, cold, and downright evil. The game's ending and the countdown ending still give me chills with their final messages.
He'll understand soon what I was trying to tell him. He needs me. Someone who will wrap everything up at the end to make sense out of the chaos and the fear and the confusion. Stanley, you're in for quite a disappointment. But here's a spoiler for you. That timer isn't a catalyst to keep the action moving along. It's just seconds ticking away to your death.
But Ultra Deluxe does something more this time around with him. There's a side to the narrator we didn't get to see too much in the first game, and that's after the story has been told. You see, we get multiple points in the original game where the narrator talks about how he wants to make a great story, and keeps insisting that his story, about Stanley freeing himself from the mind control facility, is that great story. Now, if you'd ask me, that story alone isn't fantastic. The freedom ending, that is. It always struck me as a bit odd that the narrator was so passionate about such a simple story like that, especially when the game implies that everything might just be going on inside Stanley's head with the dialogue in the apartment ending.
As he wandered through this fantasy world, he began to fill it with many possible paths and destinations. Down one path lay an enormous round room with monitors and mind controls. And down another was a yellow line that weaved in many directions. And down another was a game with a baby. And he called it the Stanley Parable.
But then in Ultra Deluxe, not only do they subvert that by showing it's not all in Stanley's head, with the great tape recorder ending.
You didn't think I was actually just a recording, did you? What a silly and trite explanation that would be. All the back and forth between you and me, all the absurd adventures we've been through, and it all turns out I'm just a tape recording? It was all just in Stanley's head. I bet that's the kind of twist you think is revelatory.
But we also get to see the narrator react to negative criticisms of the original game.
Funny.
I'm not trying to be funny. I'm trying to make a serious work of art.
He believed for so long that his story, the Stanley Parable, was perfect. Then to see these reviews that range from mildly bored to frustrated with the game upsets him. So he gives in to the harsh words.
I wish there was a skip button. A skip button? Well, yes. Yes, I think we can do that.
At first, it's played off for laughs, with him adding a skip button for all the people who thought his narration was tedious. Not me, I could listen to him read the dictionary and be enthralled for hours, but nonetheless. It quickly grows dark, though, when we find out that not only are we trapped in the skip button room, but the amount of time skipped for the narrator is increasing drastically.
Last one was, well, I want to say maybe 30, 45 minutes?
At first, we're only skipping ahead a couple minutes to let him get through his narration, but then it turns to 45 minutes, then to hours, then to a week.
Stanley, you're back. You're back. Oh my goodness, I have someone to talk to again. Stanley, I think it's been a week. Or 2 weeks?
At this point, the narrator's grown increasingly desperate for someone to talk to in all this time, being stuck alone while Stanley and the player are skipping ahead, sounding incredibly relieved when we do show back up, only for us to skip again. When we hear from him again in the next skip, he sounds more hollow. It's been a year for him without anyone to talk to.
Have you ever sat down in one place and not moved for one entire year? Let me describe it for you. To begin with, there is only regret. I felt nothing at all but regret for the longest time, Stanley. What took its place is what I can only describe as the collapse of every moment I have ever experienced my entire life.
So we skip again. Silence.
But they didn't understand the game was never meant to be funny. It was meant to have a point. It was meant to speak to the human condition. But where are the jokes? Where are the jokes? They bemoaned, they screamed, they gnashed their teeth and said, entertain us. It's the inconsistency, it's the lack of accountability, it's the unwilling...
Maybe the narrator escaped. Maybe he's dead. It's unclear, but we're still stuck in this room with nothing but a skip button. So we skip again.
The end is never the end, 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 is never the...
The roof starts to crumble open. Maybe if we skip further in time, it'll crumble enough for us to get out. The hole is covered now by plants, growing from whatever surface world is above you. Escape isn't happening. Not yet, at least. The narrator's still gone. It's nighttime. You hear howling coming from somewhere. Somewhere outside. There's still no narrator. The skip button is now broken. So much time has passed, an entire part of the wall is now crumbled away, sand filling into the room from the outside. You step out into a wasteland. Nothing but sand and some vague shapes off to the horizon. And even more dreadfully, you're alone. All alone. For once in the game, you are left completely alone. And then it ends, and we're taken back to the office. This ending is why I wanted to make this video, but it's not the only new thing that Ultra Deluxe does. I know I'm jumping all around with this video, going from topic to topic, but I realized I hadn't talked about much of the new stuff added to this great piece of art. This video was originally going to be about just the original game, and I started working on the script a few months ago. I planned to make a follow-up later on where I talked about Ultra Deluxe's improvements, but then I saw the release date was confirmed for April 27th and decided to hold off on that idea. I figured that Ultra Deluxe was just going to be an enhanced port with only a few additions, so I could just make a video talk about everything at once. I was wrong, because the original Stanley Parable has 19 endings if you include stuff like the Broom Closet and Heaven endings, which you absolutely should. So that seems like a good amount to me, and going into Ultra Deluxe, I expected like 50% more, like 9 to 10 new endings at most and a few more gags. Ultra Deluxe has like 43 endings at least. That's more than double. And I say at least because I don't even know if I found them all and the wiki page is still being worked on. Needless to say, it's full of new content. The new content ending, taking a nice jab at video game remasters that do the bare minimum of new content for their games. And then there's the new content ending, where the narrator shows off all the features he's been working on for the Stanley Parable 2. Oh yeah, forgot to mention, you've not just been playing some simple remaster, oh no. You've been playing a full-on sequel to the Stanley Parable, now with The Bucket. Wait, we already covered that one. Balloons! Comes in one of two styles. More achievements! Although this one is broken. The Infinite Hole! Well, it's only mostly infinite. Collectibles! Collect all 6 Stanley figurines. And finally, an epilogue. Wait, an epilogue? As in the final chapter? A true ending, perhaps? Well, what are we waiting for? Once you see what this is, I can complete this review / video essay / cry for help and prove that this game is a masterpiece. Alright then, let's see what it is. It doesn't have an ending. It keeps going. Every time you restart the game, it turns into a new sequel. I know, it's the same content, but how do I prove this is a masterpiece if it's never ending? You can argue all you want, but we have no idea what's beyond those numbered title screens. You'd think that'd be where it ends, just adding a new number and a subtitle, but no, because if you reset enough times to get to Stanley Parable 8, you do get new stuff. It's just the 8-button room from the Stanley Parable demo, but it's also got new narrator voice lines, so it's technically new content. And who's to say there isn't more new content behind other sequel milestones? What if there's stuff for the Stanley Parable 42, the Stanley Parable 69, the Stanley Parable 427, the Stanley Parable 1000, 5000, 1 million? And I can't look at all of that. I can't look at everything. And if I can't look over everything, analyze it top to bottom, then how can I claim this is a masterpiece? Even though the game's been fantastic so far, what if one of the sequels ruins it? The legacy of the game, and its status as a masterpiece to me? Or worse, what if there's nothing at the end? I could loop through all the games, going on and on and on, get to 1,000, 5,000, 1,000,000, 10 million, and never be rewarded for it. How can I say that's a masterpiece? How can I even finish this video? Should I even finish it? I wanted to make the best video I could, something I could be proud of, but now I'm back to where I was when I started the script, confused and not sure if this is even a good idea. How can I do that? How can I make not only myself proud, but also make you, the viewer, entertained? Is this even entertaining anymore? What am I doing? How will I finish the video? Can I finish the video? Is this a masterpiece? Do I keep going? Do I leave it off as this thing? What do I do with it? What do I do? Can I even keep going? What about all the endings? Do I talk about them? The broom closet? No, the confusion ending. No, the skip on the epilogue. What do I do?
Wait, if you're still carrying the bucket around with you, if the bucket is interesting to you, that means I must have made it correctly. I did it! I win! I made a sequel to the Stanley parable! Yes, the sign is correct. Thank you for enjoying the new content. Thank you for enjoying the new content.